Hello YouTubers, and thanks for joining me today on the video. It really means a lot you've joined me wherever you are watching this video from around the world. From me in the UK, a big hi to you, and certainly my thoughts and wishes to you and your loved ones and families out there during these very unusual times, and I hope you're all staying safe. Anyway, what I'd like to show you today is a couple of really cool updates I know you're just going to love, and hopefully it's going to whet your appetite for greater things to come on the channel. Anyway, we did talk about in the last video, or I certainly talked about putting in some street lights on the model railway here at Bentley Park Model Railway, and I had to wait a long time, just over a month, for them to be shipped from China. Anyway, the other day they arrived and they're now installed on the layout. So we'll start with the first set of lights, which is up here to the level crossing. And there's the first one. As you can see, they're these nice old-fashioned street lamps, which I think they're really lovely. They're very delicate, but reasonably sturdy enough to handle and put in, obviously. And what I've done is obviously drilled the holes in the baseboards accordingly, fed the very fine wires through, and then connected them up in a series circuit. And although they're 12 volts, they can work off 16 volts in series quite happily. So we've got one there, and then obviously one by the Morris Minor there, the green Morris Minor, and then across the road we've got one outside the church, and then moving down the road, two outside the houses there, and then panning out we've got one by the signal box right there. If we come across the level crossing, we've got one just right there, and then moving the camera carefully across, we've got one there, and we've got one there, one across the road outside the little garage there, and then one finally up the end there, like so. And we've also got now some station lights. These are exactly the same lights that I just showed you, but I've painted these up a different colour. They've got a creamy coloured post, and on top there a green little top to match the footbridge and more importantly the canopy. We've got one there, and we've got another one just there, and we've got a pair over there. That's the last two. And again, these are all wired up in series, and they work off this. Now this is really cool, this little blue box of tricks here. That was about £16 on eBay, and it comes ready assembled, or you can tick the option to have the part sent to you and you put it together yourself. Basically it's a gangway switch little panel, and you've got two feeds, one there and then one at the end. Either way you can put your 12 or 16 volts or how many volts you want to put in it, but mine's working off 16 volts AC, which is what the red and black lead is at the end there. It's coming in, and then you've got your switches at the top there, your terminal blocks to put your switches and, or should I say, the feeds to the lights via this switch box here. I've got two spare switches on the end. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet, so we could possibly put some more lights on there. But the great thing about it is, folks, we've really got some nice lights. Now we're quite fortunate now, because outside in the big wide world it's just a little bit less light. It's starting to get not dark yet, but there's enough ambience. If I turn off the house lights, and then we can see these lights to the full effect. So here we go. This is the street lights, and they look lovely, don't they? Look nice. Just zoom in. And I am well pleased with those. So that's the street lights down that end, and then we'll put the other section on, which is down here, and there we go. So we've got those lights lit up there, those ones there, and then we've got these two over there. If we pan round with the camera even further, the station. There we go, we've got the lights on the station now working. So there's my lights. It took a long time to wait for those, and to be honest with you, it was quite fiddly to do, because they are quite fiddly and a lot of faffing around underneath the baseboard, but I got there in the end. Halfway through the lighting project, my soldering iron decided to disintegrate on me in terms of the elements. I had to go out and buy a new soldering iron. But anyway, we got there in the end. And this is the fruit of my labour. Don't they look lovely? Anyway, back in a tick. Okay, so moving on, I want to show you something else I've been working on as well. If I zoom in, you might be able to see something unusual about this track formation now. Starts from the bridge, look what's on the outside. Yes, we have got some conductor rail. And it goes up as far as the level crossing. Apologies for the camera work, guys. I'm trying to hold this with my hand, but it's still plugged into the wall socket because it's flat as a pancake. But there we go. I've installed some conductor rail there, which runs all the way around the outside. A little break there, and it goes up towards the road bridge. And then I've got to lay some more the other side of the road bridge and up to the level crossing over the back there. And I've got to lay all the way at the back of the layout up to the tunnel mouth and stop just inside the tunnel mouth. If we come over this side with the camera, you'll see I have laid some conductor rail there, some third rail at the moment. It's not staying like that, by the way. I've started to lay it across there. And then through the platform there and all the way up to there where you just saw earlier, and up to the level crossing up that end. And the reason I've done that, let me just come and sit down a second, it's easier for me and also for the camera. I'll talk to you a little bit about this conductor rail as to why I've done this. Right, on the far side over there, over on the third circuit, obviously you notice and have seen in my previous videos, I've got fourth rail London Underground conductor rails and cable runs over there, obviously. But what happened was, recently I managed to do something rather exciting, and I'll show you exactly why I laid those conductor rails. And by the way, we're going to be adding some fourth rails here, so I'm going to add a middle rail to make it the complete fourth rail as per over that shot over there. So the idea is I'm going to get some conductor rail when it comes and lay the rest of it all the way through and over round the back through the road bridge tunnel and all the way around the back side of the other part of the layout over there, the back bit. So the idea is we're going to have duplicate fourth rail London Underground like that, with a bit of a difference. Now, why am I laying fourth rail on Bentley Park? Why have we got another London Transport Track edition? Well, the simple reason is I've got something very unique to show you in a second, which I know you're going to like. But also there's masses and masses of work to do, so it will mean more uploads and more things of interest for you to watch. So there's the laying of the conductor rail, which I haven't finished yet. It's far from finished, as mentioned. And also I'm going to go buy some more of these from Radley Models, which are these cable hangers, these white metal cast posts with the hooks on to hang the cables, and I'm going to run them from here all the way along the back of the platform, all the way along and down as far as the end, and then we're going to continue with my finger right the way around to the other side. You get the gist. Anyway, there'll be obviously much more work on the layout done now. It's a new project I'm starting, and I'm very excited to share that with you tonight on the video. So that's what's coming your way in terms of more stuff being done on the layout for you to see, different change of scenery. I'll explain a little bit more about the conductor rail in a minute, what I'm doing with it and why. But I'm going to give you the main reason as to why I've installed this conductor rail, and I'm going to show you right now. here we go. Right, if you've not seen it, excuse me, I promise I haven't got it. Right, these are EFE London Underground tube trains. EFE standing for Exclusive First Editions. And what these are, they originally were released as static models that you could put on your shelf or on a display cabinet or on your sideboard or whatnot. But they've got the potential to be motorised, and that's exactly what I've done here. There's many different people out there that offer motorised versions of these, and I've decided to DIY and do it myself. So this is a 4-car 1962 stock train. It says 5962s. Technically these are 59s from the seating colour and from the car numbers on the side, but I always remind, well, these are always to me 62s because that's my favourite underground train, or my top underground train, second being 1938 stock. Anyway, it's always been my dream to actually own and operate a model London Underground train such as this. And in 4-car formation, this to me is very reminiscent of the Ongar branch of the Central Line, and up until 1994, September 1994, when the line was closed. So this really is the reason why I'm laying conductor rail or fourth rail on the outside track. The second reason is primarily that these trains do not like second, or even worse, first radius curves. They don't like second radius too much, and that reason is because if you look at this going round, hang on, I'll pull it in the station in a minute and I'll just show you exactly what I'm talking about. Bear with me. Right, shutting off. There she goes. Beautiful smooth stop. Now, before I go on any further, I'm just so excited to actually have this running. And I'll talk to you a little bit about more how I got it running. And also I'm going to do a further video to show you how to install and motorise these EFE tube trains if you've got one yourself out there, because I've scoured about YouTube and so far I've found nothing that shows you somebody actually physically putting the motors in these and showing you how it's done. But I'm going to do that very soon, so hopefully you'll join me for that, and I hope you'll find it interesting and helpful. Anyway, a little bit of information about these trains. In reality, these trains, the 1959 tube stock, which is what these are, they came into service on the Piccadilly line on the London Underground in 1959. They were a successor to the 1956 stock, which was very much identical, the first aluminium bodied tube trains on London Transport, because everything up to then was painted red. And these trains were the first silver aluminium tube trains on the Piccadilly in 1959. And they were so successful that the company Metro and Camel in Birmingham They got another massive order from London Transport to replace all the standard stock cars on the Central line by 1960-61, and they didn't actually get them through until about 1960-61, and they were so successful, so much again, that another massive order was placed, and the trains that they actually sent to London Transport were known as 1962 tube stock, which were exactly identical to these 1959 units. They're virtually interchangeable as well in reality. So the Central line got equipped with 62 tube stock from the 12th of April 1962, and they were withdrawn in 1995, I believe, the last one. Correct me if I'm wrong, I should know that. But anyway, the point of why I'm putting it over here on this part of the layout, or running it on this track, is because purely, if you look at the car distances between each carriage, I'll zoom in and show you, there's not an awful lot of room, and there's a coupling bar, which I'll show you in detail in a second after this clip, that comes with each model. The idea is you mount the whole thing on a display plinth that come in sections, and they give you these little plastic long and short couplings to couple your carriages together. However, us model railway ladies and gents out there, we're not used to these things. We're used to the good old standard Hornby couplings, or NIM pockets, or KDs even. But these things, they've got a very strange way of coupling, these tow bars, if you like. A bit like a caravan and a car sort of setup. But they're a little bit fiddly, and for running purposes you've got to really get them right. Now they come with a short coupling bar and a long coupling bar, and as you can see, sorry, I'm not going to dismantle my layout, this does come off. If I take that out of the way, you better see better what I'm talking about. But if you look at the distance between that car and that car, for example, it's pretty tight. There's just about enough clearance on that, and then if we move up further, you'll see there's a bit of a gap there as well. But the reason is when this goes round curves, you've got to be careful the two carriages don't foul each other as they go around the curves if they're too tight. So the whole point in me showing you that is because when I tried running it over there on this line here, it didn't like it too much, and the only way you're going to run it is by putting the long couplings on, and it looks like basically cowboys and Indians jumping from the tender to the carriage. Massive gap, doesn't look right, and it was annoying me. So what I had to do basically was take a couple of these long couplings and slightly modify them and cut them down just a fraction, re-drill a new hole, and then fit a little screw through the hole as a pin. Like I said, like a caravan and a car setup basically, tow bar and a pin basically. But as you can see, it runs reasonably well. The other thing is that this 4-car unit, I'll explain to you a little bit more about this as well now. In reality, obviously you had a driving cab at each end. Obviously there's one driving cab there, or driving motor car, DMs as they're known as. So there's driving motor car there. This one here is called an uncoupling non-driving motor car. Bit of a mouthful, but all the train crews were taught to call them undums. Anyway, there's a 10 Shodo motor bogie in here, and next to that carriage, excuse me, this one here, hang on, let me take this canopy off, it's much more easier, that's better, isn't it? Right, the carriage next to it is called a trailer car. This carried the compressor and was also known as the no, it was, sorry, excuse me, start again. That's the trailer car, that's the undum as mentioned, but also these were called the smoking cars. And back in the day when you could have a fag on the underground, basically that was the smoking car, and it was also known by the yellow ceiling that was inside as well through all the nicotine. Anyway, so we got the undum there, trailer car there, and up front we got the driving motor car with the cab on the front there. There's also a 10 Shodo motor in the front there, which again I'll give you a look at in a minute. Put the canopy back on before they all complain of catching cold. But anyway, it's a 4-car formation as you can see. And basically there are two motors in this formation. There's one at the front that's mentioned, and then one obviously in the middle of the train, roughly in here. And you can mount them in series as a pair in the lead car, or you can split them up, as what I've done. I decided to split them up because it gives the train a fighting chance in the middle to have a bit more added power to it as it goes round. Also, each carriage that I've motorised, I've put some heavy weights in there in the undone car, and also in the lead driving motor car there's some weights in there as well. Again, you'll see that in a minute. But on the whole, these trains, I just want to add a few things. The motor bogies on these, so when you put the 10 Shodo motor bogies underneath the bogies, for example, under the train, if you've got fourth rail as per my setup over here, come on camera, there we are, over there, you notice the conductor rails sit a little bit higher because of the Peco insulated pops they sit on. I'm inclined to disagree with that, because I found out when you run these EFA tube trains, because the motor bogies underneath that you fit eventually, they're quite low slung. So what happens is, if the centre conductor rail or the outside conductor rail are sitting a little bit high due to the Peco insulators, what happens is on curved track and point work they foul the bogie slightly and you don't make good contact with the wheels on the rails to pick up the current, and also you have derailment problems. So what I've done, scouted a few ideas and just had a look with my eye and thought, well, you know what, I bet you, because code 60 Peco rail, the conductor rail we use for this job, is quite very thin stuff, and once you lay it down, like I said, and you paint it a nice graphite grey, profile don't look too bad. And I say with the old tube trains running over it, come on camera, sorry about this guys, I'm just trying to tackle the plug-in lead of my camera because the battery's charging at the same time. But as you can see, because these are quite small trains, they do need a lot of clearance underneath somewhat, so that's why I've laid my conductor rail. That's so. And if I look at that shot there, I mean, the eye does believe that that is a conductor rail, it's a live rail there. Looks a bit like the southern region at the moment with the old third rail just on its own outside, but again, once my conductor rail comes from rails of Sheffield, tut, then it will look really good, because then I'll start laying some cable hangers as well, and it will look much more London Transportified. The idea is that it's a what if the central line continued up past Ongar into the Cambridge territory and there was a little line there or somewhat. Anyway, it also gives me a chance to run them on the outer circuit, which is much more wider curvature, and they seem to be quite happy. Anyway, that's the reason I did that. Just a little thing before we go on to the next segment, a little bit of custom detail I added to the rear driving car. Before these received the electric tail lamps on the back, or the marker stabling, or the stabling lights as they were known, up until then they had paraffin oil lamps on the underground trains, and that's what I've done there. And if you Google up a picture of underground trains in the 60s, and you'll see some tail lamps on the back, and that was basically definitely central line practice up until I think it was the early 70s when they got the I think it was fed from the battery or the motor generator that fed the stabling light, which is on the outside. And the way to tell the 59 and tube stock apart, once they got the stabling lights, was the big red stabling light was on the outer side of the two white headlights, and if it was inside, nearest to the middle cab door, it was a 59. Anyway, a little bit of useless information there for you. Moving in the camera, I'm really proud of this little job. I've got to sort of brag a little bit because I think this is really cool what I've done. I've not seen no one do this before, and that's put a guard in his rightful position at the rear car, doing his job, mind the doors. That was a simple little modification I did. Just got my razor saw out, carefully cut away the single leaf door there, which was moulded to the body, and then took a Bachmann Loco crew, slightly modified him, repainted him, and now he's working for London Transport. Oh no, he's defected from the eastern region. Oop. Anyway, the name of my guard, if you're curious out there, the name of my guard or my 4-car tube train, his name is Bob. And the name of the motorman up the front, his name is Paul. So there we are. Motorman Paul and guard motorman Bob. Anyway, that's that. And we'll get on to the next bit and I can show you some detail about these cars more close up and bits and pieces with them, okay? But like I said, just a few little pointer ideas out there. I mean, if you're thinking about laying some conductor rail on your own piece of railway, you know, you want to run some EMUs and make them look even more effective, you don't have to go to the trouble of putting down these Peco insulated chairs and, not insulated chairs, insulated pots, sorry. I'll get it right in a minute. The Peco insulated chairs that go with the Code 60 rail, they are a very nice product, and if you've got the time and the patience to do it, it can be rewarding. But like I said, it's okay for something to look good, but if it's got a function with your trains and you can't run your EMU or your tube trains or the stuff that's got shoe gear with it, we have a problem. So the easiest solution, I think, is just to lay it directly to the end of the sleepers, or certainly in the middle, and once it's in place you can paint it, you can even super glue or solder feed cables coming off it. I mean, you can do all sorts, there's no limit, but I think mine looks actually more fine scale, and I can run my tube trains, I can run my Met Bobo, I've got a 2 Howl that I've tested on there, and it looks and works perfect. So there we are. Anyway, if you want to go and get a cup of tea, feel free to do so, and we shall see you very soon in the next bit. Okay, so we're back on the old faithful work table here in the railway room, and I've got the 4-car set that you saw earlier running around. I've now got that on the workbench, and I want to show you a couple of things that might answer some questions you're thinking about. Well, first of all, these bogies, as you can see, let me bring them in, zoom it up. Oh, there we are. These are the original EFE bogies. Now, a lot of people out there will fight and campaign against this video and say, oh, you should have the old Metro model bogies on there because they're pinpoint axles. They're quite expensive, to be honest with you, if you order them from Metro Models. Not knocking Metro Models, I think they're a great company, but a little bit too expensive for my budget at the moment to do that. I mean, if you order, I think a 4-car fully motorised 62 tube train from Metro Models, you're looking about, I think, 470 quid. I saw something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they can be quite expensive. So with me, it's only cost me £100. Which is £51 each from Radley Models, who do the motorising kits, which is a 10 Shodo bogie or a spud, and I'll show you in a minute how you fit them, or not how you fit them, but where they go, and then I'm going to do another upload separately to show you the process of actually fitting the motors to these trains and getting them running on your layout. So some questions. So first of all, these bogies. Normally inside, if we just pop them open like that, inside here you'll see there's an empty space, and these axles just sit in the axle holes and they go round. They go around quite well, I think so anyway. But what it actually improves these is you take there's a metal cross plate that sits in there. It's a bit like suspension, and the idea is if you sit these models on your sideboard or on your shelf, there's a little spring plate inside these bogies that stops them from moving around. It's a friction device, so it stops them rolling off and onto the floor. If you take that away from the inside of these, what happens is you get look. That's entirely up to you out there what you think about that. But that's pretty free running. It's about as best as you're going to get. And what I did with these as well, not only take the spring plates out, But I also added a little tiny drop of Loco lube oil on the axle holes, as you would normally do with lubricating your rolling stock and locos, and that even enhanced it even further. These wheels will get black after a time. They're not great quality wheels, they're a little bit rough, but if it's going to get you up and running and get your train running around your track without any derailments, then job done. I mean, later on down the line, if you want to upgrade and get the Metro models bogies, then you can. Me personally, I'm going to stick with these. I'll tell you why, because I don't like the Metro model bogie frames. They're rather plain, and all this detail isn't on there. And what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to, for example, where it's got the shoe beam on, sorry, I'm focusing very well, where you've got the shoe beam detail on here, on a motor bogie, for example, you've got to actually physically cut the side of these bogie frames off, either end, just cut them off each side, and stick them on the Metro model's bogie frame. To me, that's pointless. It's just a pointless task. You might as well stick with these if you can. The other thing you can do with these, if you're engineering minded like myself, if you notice, I'll bring this up to the camera, I'm not showing too good at home maybe, but there's my little pointy device, my drill driver, there it is. If you look at these bogies, you could drill through each of these axle, where the axle bearing holes would be, so that you've got pinpoint holes, and you could put top hat bearings in there if you wanted to. Quite easily convert those and put some top hat bearings in there and pinpoint axles. It's up to you at home how you do it, but me personally, these run reasonably well. They're not the best of wheels, but you know what, they work, as you saw from the video there. And with two motors in these 4-car units, they really do perform reasonably well. So anyway, let's just put this back in here a minute. Where are we? Up here. Let's click this back in here, and they just push back in. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to show you something. A little bit of modifications. The next question, when it comes to bogies, about this, let me zoom out. The next question people are asking out there, I'm sure watching this, is how do you couple these damn things together? Well, they can be a little bit tricky. What I've done is to ensure the right distance between the cars, obviously, because the first thing I'm going to talk about is track radius. Now, I'm not going to touch too much on the subject, but in the nutshell, you've got fourth radius curves, then third, then seconds, then first. First being the extreme tight curves you can get on a model railway. Very, very good for 040 little pugs, little trams, stuff like that. Anything other than that, forget it. On my layout, I've got fourth, third and second radius curves, and when these tube cars are all coupled up in formation, as you see, you've got to have a considerable gap between each car, because these haven't got, if you look on these cars here, because they haven't got the standard Hornby couplings, or the ones that we all know, even KDs, these have got these kind of like tow bar affair couplings on here, which they look like the prototype, because in real life that's very similar to what they had. But what I've done with mine is, you get, with these EFE tube trains, you get the short couplings, which are a very shortened version of these coupling bars, which you can see here. That's the short coupling bar, if I bring it up to the camera. And they just fit onto the bogie underneath. There's a pin, it just pushes into place. And then you hook it onto the next carriage. That's the short one. On this particular car, which is the Undum, which has got the motor in, I've slightly modified the couplings by putting the longer bars on there. You get the short and the longs. This is a slightly modified longer one, but I've just lopped off the end slightly and just moved the hole a bit closer to get the right coupling distance. You've got to experiment. But what I've done, I've put a small screw. If you can see that on the camera there. Whoop, come on. There we go. I've just drilled a hole basically with a very, very small drill bit and put a screw through there and super glued it in place. And the best way to describe that system is a caravan and car tow bar system. pin in a hole basically. And they work, as you can see, very, very well, and it's also much easier to uncouple when you take them off the track. So small hole with just a very small screw put through there and securely held in place with a bit of super glue. And then what I've done underneath is just, oh, you can see this, I've just filed the bottom of that screw off ever so slightly so it doesn't catch anything underneath, like TPO, operating ramps, level crossing bits and pieces and stuff that it doesn't catch in the forefoot. Anyway, that's that one done. So talking about how you fit the motors, well, what I'll show you is very simply, I'll put this back in here. If you can see, by the way, they've got a little hole there, pretty self-explanatory. You just clip them in place like that, good to go. Okay, moving on. Where do you sit the motors in these things? Well, like I said, I'll show you the inside of this now and where the motor goes and how you seat it, but the actual process of doing it, like I said, I'll show you in another video. But anyway, for those of you out there interested, this is the driving motor car. That's what we do. If I take my magic cloth on my workbench here, out of the way up there, and we're going to prepare for surgery. Ugh. Right, what we'll do, I'll just show you very simply. I'll put this down obviously to stop any scratches of the paintwork. Not that you will do it, but you don't want to scratch these because they're quite nice, and they are lovely trains. I do love these. Right, if you look on the bottom, before I do any unscrewing, I'll show you. So first of all, not sure if you can pick that out on the camera, but there's our motor bogie. This is, again, these are 10 Shodos of spuds. A lot of people, they don't like these because they say, oh, because the plastic gear inside wears out too quick. But from my past experience, I found these to be reasonably good. If you use what's known as the Black Beetle or the Bullant bogies, more so Black Beetles. Black Beetles are far superior. They're nicer motors, but they're also damned expensive. They're about 97 quid just for one motor. These with postage and packaging and a lovely little super detail pack that goes with it, including a little driver that you set up front in the cab and some weights. The whole thing, including postage from Radley models, £51. So, you know, do the math, whatever you want to spend. But these are much easier to fit, and they're also, what can I say, they're adequate for the job if you put enough weights inside these cars, which I'll explain and show you right now. So that's the motor bogie, and then up the other end we've just got a plain bogie. Now you can, the next video I'm going to do and show you is we're going to put two motors in. We're going to put one there, and then we're also going to put one up here. That will be in the next video as mentioned. But right now I just want to show you how to get inside these things and how to get the body off the chassis. So if you look at the front where the cab is, you'll see in that shot there's one screwed out, and then at the back there's one, and then there's two little screw holes, one there where you put your Drew driver in. So if we turn it around this way, I'm not going to teach you how to suck eggs, but you can fathom out what I'm doing anyway. So again, for those that have missed it, I will do a complete video how to install the motors in these EFE tube cars. Right, that's two, and the last one, there he is, put him there, and then what we do, flip it over, and then with a little bit of persuasion, hopefully we can get this off, rest it on the tea towel there, with a little bit of leverage. And off she comes. Right, so there's the car body, and if you haven't seen these inside, I wasn't joking about super detail when you buy these. I mean, look, you get all the line maps in there, plus the strap hangers. Very well detailed little models these are. And I love the paint finish on these, and these little no smoking decals on the windows there. Very good. Anyway, let's put that to one side. Up there on the old shelf. Right, okay, so let's try and zoom in and I'll show you the business, or what we need to look at. So just, let me adjust the old camera. Okay. Pan out ever so slightly. There we go. Right. Okay, so you'll notice on these, what you basically do is you cut a slot for a little bracket that sits underneath. This is, by the way, these are weights you get with the motorising kit. They're quite heavy weights that fit in the door gangways. You've got to do a little bit of filing, but you sit the weights in there, and then you obviously paint the top black so it can't be seen in the carriage, which I've done. So here, I'll bring it up close so you can see. So that's a cast white metal weight that I've painted black, and then protruding out of there, you can just about see the motor bracket. It's a long bracket with a bend in it, which basically, there's another weight on top I've put there, by the way. Underneath here, you'll see the motor. So what I'll do, if I take this bit of tape off in a minute, well actually now, and you could see what I'm talking about. I want to really be clear to you guys at home watching this video that you can get an idea of just how reasonably easy to do these things. Bit of sellotape on there holds that weight in place, and we can just lift it out of the way. And there it is in all its glory. There's the Tenshodo motor in there, and that long arm bracket with the screw in the centre, that screws into the motor, which again is fitted to the bogie frame itself. What you do, you cut a hole out first of all where the seats are, that little bit of flooring where this seating area here, so you cut a slot for the arm, which is the motor bracket support, and then you fit your motor. Now, having said that, you put it all back together. Oh look, there's the little motorman figure at the front as well, if you want to see that. That comes with the motor kit, isn't that nice? So anyway, to make a long story short, they're not that hard to do. That's where the motor sits inside the chassis as such, and then these bogies, like I said, all you do, you cut out the middle. Again, I'll show you all this in the next video, but basically you cut out the middle of the bogie frame. Again, very simple to do. And then these Tenshodo motors come with a bracket that you super glue in place to the motor underneath. You take the bottom off, well, again I'll show you in the next video, and you can secure your motor to your frame very, very easily, and then you just fit it back up to the arm inside, put the screw in place, and put a little bit of weight there if needed, do a test run, and it should run okay. But anyway, that's all going to be covered in my next video, and how to actually physically install these motors and what you cut and what you do need. But that's pretty much it. That's how you motorise these. In my next video, we're going to be fitting 2 of these motors, a pair of motors in a driving carriage like this, and hopefully you'll find that very interesting and helpful. So I've searched YouTube, and again, correct me if I'm wrong everybody, but I've not seen one as yet that shows you how to fit and install a Tenshodo or Tenshodos into this. Anyway, I'll give you a little heads up. My next model, or my next conversion, is going to be some of these. The good old 1938 stock. That's going to be my next job. So anyway, you'll be seeing these in the next video getting converted. So anyway, I'll just pause this for a minute. I'm going to go have a cup of tea and a gentleman's rest, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, apologies for that little break there. the other half came in from shopping. I had to go downstairs and see what was what. Anyway, I've got some wheels and bogies off here at the moment, because what I've decided to do is paint the wheels that were not painted. So I'm painting those black at the moment. They're just drying over there, which is the outer edge, so you can't see those when it's running, so it looks nice and dark. And while we've got the cover off, you can have a look at the actual motor in the undone unit, or the uncoupling non-driving motor car. There's the actual Tenshodo motor with the cover off. As you can see, it's actually a 5-pole motor. So I've actually looked at these poles inside. They actually are, there's 5 of them. So this is a 5-pole motor. It's a worm drive. As you can see, you've got the worm at both ends that interact with the gears on the wheels. So it's a pretty sturdy bogie. These can be converted to DCC if you want to do that. But there's the hole that's been cut out, like I said, and you just basically paint over the damage you've done. Well, not damage is the wrong term. The where you've cut, you can just touch up with some black paint, is what I was trying to say. But it looks really horrific, but it's not. It's actually quite easy. And like I said, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I will show you how to do all this in my next video, which I'll be showing you how to do the fitting of the motor. Anyway, while I had that off, I just thought I'd show you with the old camera there, to show you what it looks like inside, what does the business end. And this is the actual motor bogie frame that's been cut out. As you can see, this is a good chance actually to can show you this to compare. If we look at the 2 bogie frames in shot here, this is the normal EFE one without the motor in. As you can see, it's got the plastic moulded cross bit in the middle, which is all this area here. And what you do, you cut it out if you're going to fit the motor into there, and then you get a little metal goalpost type bracket that sits underneath the motor in that space. You simply super glue it in place, and it basically pushes itself up against the bogie frame, and you get it to the right height and adjustment how it should sit, and hey presto, and you simply click that onto your motor, and there we are. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll show you in the next video. Anyway, that's pretty much going to be about it from me in terms of looking at these things technically. The old EFE cheap trains there, and as you see on my workbench, I thought while I've got these uncoupled, I'd give the wheels a paint and give me an excuse to do something, keep me occupied mentally. And up here on the shelf, these are the ones that I'm going to be doing in the next video, which will be the motorising mod video I'm going to do. They're getting ready and prepared up on my old shelf up there, as you can see. So anyway, lots of exciting things to look forward to. But yeah, going back to these bogies, question someone's probably going to ask you out there, what do you do if you haven't got these coupling bars available, i.e. you haven't got them, or they're broken, or they're missing, or you haven't got them, and how do you couple them without these coupling bars? Well, what you can do, you could actually make your own. If you got some brass or white metal strip, more so brass, you can cut the size and drill your own. Or again, if you ask Radley Models, they do supply the ones you just cut out yourself and drill the hole through, which are pretty easy to do. Or you can do what I would do. If you've got the long coupling bars, you've got a load of these, because if you bought these as a set, I've actually got an 8-car set of these silver 1959 62 stock trains. It's not even dinner times, I'm talking about chops. If I've got an actual 8-car unit of these, and when I bought them from the London Transport Museum many moons ago, they all came with the coupling bar supplied. So I've kept those, but I had a load of long ones. So like I said, trial and error. I just measured them roughly the size, see how they fit between the 2 cars, and that's how I've modified the coupling bars. But like I said, because of the way the ends of these cars couple quite closely, when they go around curves, specifically 4th radius curves, you've got to be careful of the clearances, because they don't couple and function like normal ready to run stuff that we're used to from Hornby and Bachmann and whatever. But once you sort that out, as you can see, the results are there, and it's quite rewarding. In terms of running, like I said, let's go back up to the layout for a second, guys. If we come over here to the old layout again. Right, so in layman's terms, fourth radius, third radius, second radius. From experience, the EFE trains over there on the bench, they do not like second radius curves. They're not too happy with those because as the cars go round, the end of the cars tend to bump up to each other too much, and you end up having to put the really long couplings as they're supplied fitted. It doesn't look very prototypical with massive gaps between each car. You've got to be John Wayne to jump to the next carriage or something, you know. That's not prototypical. But they don't mind third radius, but they absolutely love nice long curves like these fourth radius curves, as you've seen from the running video. So if you've got fourth radius curves on your railway, or even flexi track, so you've got a nice gradual curve, even better. But they tended to be quite happy on the old fourth radius curve. So really that's why I've chosen to electrify, or pretend to electrify the fourth rail system over here on this particular line, as opposed to running it over there. That's mainly why I did it, because they look really good going around on that track, the first track. So I thought, you know what, let's take the plunge and have them over there. And then in theory we could have a small little 3-car, say 1938, working the shuttle service over there, and the 62s working the main line over here. And in between the underground stock you can have the Great Eastern steam trains, goods trains, little J15s, and anything. Just before I close, a little bit of why I chose to model it this way, or why things are changing on the layout. Just as in real life, everything around us is changing because of COVID-19. There's a new normal out there. Well, this is the new normal for my layout. So now I've decided to have a London Transport what if. And those words what if mean exactly what if. You can either build a model railway based on the prototype right down to the last brick, or you can build, most people tend to build a what if layout, like what if the particular region of their choice came to that town, or what if there was a branch line that went off to that part of the world and it was run by whatever operator you want. Well, this in my opinion is going to be what if the central line went past Ongar and up towards Stansted and towards the Cambridge area. And my layout is based on somewhere in Cambridge in the early 60s. That's originally how it started, Bentley Park, because there actually is a place up near Cambridge called Bentley. So I chose Bentley Park as a fictitious place. I swear I've only had one today. A fictitious place somewhere up in Cambridge called Bentley Park. So the layout itself is now going to be a central line. What if London Transport extended the central line as it was proposed to go up to Stansted? And in real life they did think about that many years ago. I'm talking decades ago, centuries ago, when the Great Eastern had the line up to Ongar. They were thinking about putting it out to Stansted, but it never came to fruit. And there was one particular driver on the underground that did a lot of research into that and put it to the London Transport Passenger Board about actually being very serious about proposing to extend it to Stansted. But again, it never happened. But this could be a what if, folks, a what if. So it's all fictitious, just a little bit of fun, but it also gives me an excuse to lay some conductor rail there, paint it up as best I can, and again, a what if. At the moment it looks like Southern Region because I've got the old third rail in place but not the fourth. But once I start putting the fourth rail, the centre rail in, and get those cable hangers eventually going around the side there and getting it all fixed in place, it's a big project, but thank goodness for the lockdown, it's going to give me something to do. Anyway, with that thought, I'm going to leave you. I'll be back for my final break in a minute, and I'll just close by saying thank you for watching the video today. Hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. Hope it's whetted your appetite for the next video I'm going to do. And stay safe out there to all of you, and I'll see you again wherever that may be. Take care and goodbye now.